All right. Well, welcome everyone to this Northwest CUHO webinar. My name is Megan Lockwood. I am the Northwest CUHO Communications Director, and in my day job, I'm an executive assistant and project manager for University Housing and Dining Services at Oregon State University. Today, we will be hearing from Kurt Haapala with Mahlum Architects. Kurt and Mahlum are longtime Northwest CUHO corporate partners and sponsors. So we're really excited to have Kurt back with us for another webinar. Kurt's program today is titled "The Stage is Yours: Tips on How to Deliver a Memorable Presentation." And so selfishly, as we ramp up to the annual conference in February, I hope this inspires some of you to submit a program to present at the conference. But I'm going to let Kurt introduce themselves and their presentation in a bit more detail. So Kurt, take it away.
Okay, great. Can everyone hear me okay? So actually I should create a little chapter on virtual meetings because I'm recognizing that I'm in a small teleconferencing space in the Mahlum office. The acoustics aren't great in my ears and the lighting is not great, so I look a little dark. Plus I got a little glare on my head. Now, some of these things aren't that important, but as you do virtual meetings, those are, better lighting and things of that nature might actually become important. So I'm going to make a note of that, Megan. There should be like another little chapter. I'm also going to hit my timer because I like to know that I'm on time, or if I'm running long, which if you've been to any presentations, you might know I go long, so that we do try and wrap things up. That could change things. But anyway, well, welcome. I would want everyone in the chat to just chat a number if you have given a presentation before, and if so, how many? Is it 1? Is it 0? Is it 4? And Megan, just for curiosity, if you could just take a look at that and screenshot it, just be good to know. And we'll just keep rolling. So at Mahlum Architects, we really lean into equity and inclusion in our work. And so I wanted to first acknowledge the land that I reside on has been stewarded by many tribes of the Multnomah, NWACUHO, the Cowlitz, the Clathmit, Clackamas, bands of the Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, and Malala. And we really try and respect the place that we're in, and try and elevate those voices as we move forward in any process. So I wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge that. And for you all, wherever you are, to think a little bit about the land with which you are on and the communities who have been stewards of that land as well. So moving forward, I have a fairly simple agenda. Wanted to talk about anxiety. It's not natural for everyone to want to grab the stage unless you're a thespian and got into drama as a young person. But also to talk about some helpful hints to prepare, any helpful hints to avoid, and maybe some resources at the end. And as Megan said, it's abstract season for Northwest CUHO and ACUHO. And so while I don't cover necessarily how to write an abstract, there's going to be some information in here that will actually help that. And I'm certainly willing to answer questions about, well, how do you start writing an abstract or an outline? Or how do you get to a place where you can say, yes, I want to present? So yes, who am I? There I am in my cute little outfit. I don't know what age I am there, but I've been doing this for quite a while. I'm a partner with Mahlum Architects. We have been working on student life and student residential communities for almost all of my career. And it has been rewarding and enriching to work with so many of you and so many of your institutions. Everywhere I go, I get to re-engage with people and projects and see how students are utilizing the space. And it's just a terribly interesting place to be as a designer in this market. Like I said, I've been doing this a while. I haven't updated this slide, but I've been presenting at Northwest CUHO since 2007. Some of you may not have been born yet. I don't know. You don't have to raise your hand, but it has allowed me opportunities to get better and better at it. I would not say I am perfect. I am not saying I'm Steve Jobs that will stand up on a stage and give a TED Talk, but at the same time, I do feel like I enjoy it. And I love sharing lessons learned and then receiving that same education and dialogue from attendees. So why is this important? Well, number one, it's going to help everyone to better communicate in a world where communication is becoming a lost art or a skill that needs to be harnessed even more. I think it's going to be really important for you to use communication and presentation practice even on your internal work teams. You're going to work more effectively with students, with parents, with communities and stakeholders at your institutions. When you can be clear and articulate in your points of view, you can motivate and advocate for your teams and for staff. The knowledge that you're sharing at conferences like NWACUHO will be invaluable, and it's like muscle memory. You'll be flexing that muscle and getting it stronger as you continue to make presentations. You're going to actually demonstrate your expertise, and you're going to feel more confident in the delivery the more you do it. And, you know, as a entry-level, mid-level, or even senior-level housing professional, this is good growth for your career. It may not be the thing that you're always going to do, but when you can do it and do it well, it's just going to help in that overall growth. So let's move on to talk about anxiety. So first and foremost, the best way to address anxiety is to really have a command of the content that you are going to share. It's going to eliminate any of the kind of nervousness because you know what you're talking about. And understanding your content and organizing your thoughts will help as well, so you don't find yourself lost and looking up and looking for what you were supposed to say. You'll be able to engage better with your audience and consider your audience. And there are some tips about self-care that I just wanted to throw out as well. So when you start thinking about a presentation or a conference abstract, the first question is, what is the message? What is the message that I want to share? Why is it important to me that I want to share this idea, this message, this concept, this story, this journey that you've experienced? Can you see the phone call I'm getting right now? No. Okay, good. Ugh, that's distracting. So I'm going to close out on that. I'm going to keep rolling. Just keep rolling. That's a pro tip. Why do you think it's important that you want to share? It's not just because you've had this personal impact and you want to share, but will it have a benefit to your peers in other institutions if you're talking about student experience issues or operational or assignment or anything? Think about why it could be beneficial in the cohort with which you're speaking to. Again, it goes to, what do you think the audience will learn? You are the expert of your own journey, and therefore, when you're sharing a story that's connected personally or professionally, the audience is going to learn something, and there's some benefit there. And lastly, if you're really passionate or you're deeply connected to it, it will come through, and you will be even more compelling because people will see the emotional connection that you have with it. Even if it's a high emotion, or even if it's something that really brings out tears or you know, something deep, it's still powerful. It's just, you know, no one likes to get up on stage and cry. I've done it actually before, but people have felt the message that I was delivering. So anyway, having a personal experience is the best way to understanding your content. Not just that you heard about something that's going on at your university and you want to share that, but having that personal connection with it. If you have a story to share, whether it's personal or professional, that relates to the subject matter, those anecdotes add to the depth and interest in the content, not just a factual delivery. Have you done any research on this? You guys are all educators by training, and so you are in your collegiate degree, or even in your work, you may be well researched on a subject that will help with the content and the confidence. And better yet, if you've applied the knowledge, and even if you've got terrible lessons learned, don't do this, I tried it and it didn't work, that can be a very compelling presentation, in as much as we tried this at Oregon State and it's changing us for the better, and let me share that with you. That's great too, but sometimes lessons learned that aren't so rosy are very impactful as well. So when we're talking about actually organizing your thoughts, I start by typing up, and I'm typing up sentences and thoughts. Sometimes I have to get 1,000 words out to get down to 250 really good words. But start figuring out your talking points. What is it that you want to say to each slide, and why are you saying it? If you're just filling space, that will get to be a little dry as well. Or if you're talking too fast because you have so much content, you're going to lose your audience. A structure to a good abstract or a good proposal and a good outline is to have an introduction, to have the body of the content, and then to conclude. I think you've probably all heard, and I don't know if this is well researched or not, but sometimes you have to say something 3 times for people to really understand it. And that can be the case in a presentation where you set up your big message, you deliver the message in little pieces, and then you restate the message. That's very often important for people to follow you. The key overriding message at Mahlum, we call it the KOM. I don't know that that's an industry standard, but what is the big message that you're trying to drive home? And how is it integrated throughout? Because you could say something really impactful in the beginning, and then you're in the weeds talking about something else, and then you end. There's no connectivity. People will be left kind of confused. And so that key overriding message has to be integrated, much like you would stitch together, I don't know what you stitch, but to just bring that storyline throughout the presentation. Case studies. Oh boy, getting another phone call. I should have turned my, anyway, case studies, visual aids. Sometimes I have things that I'm sharing or bringing to the presentation, or funny little anecdotes help to just enrich the process and highlight potentially a concept that you want to talk about. So the audience, the good news, as I said earlier, is you are the expert of your own journey and your own lived experience, and you have knowledge that the audience doesn't have. And feel good about that, feel confident about that. And so when there's the imposter syndrome, which is, I think, prevalent. People think, well, I can't possibly get up on stage or at a conference and share something. I'm not an expert. Well, you actually are. That doesn't mean you should be arrogant. You should be humble and respectful, but you have an expertise that is worth sharing. So get that word out there. We think about best practices and accessibility, and as you're joining a conference, make the assumption that someone in the audience actually needs an accommodation, but don't ask about it. So that might be proper having a microphone or closed captioning, which Megan, I guess you explained how to obtain closed captioning, right? I've already forgotten that because I was at the driving conference yesterday and we had the closed captioning. Good contrast for your text and colors. These are all ways to help build in accommodations for those with different visual or auditory needs. Is the audience a diverse mix of professionals, or are they similarly aligned? So at NWACUHO, we pretty much know our audience is people like ourselves that are engaged in housing and engaged in student life and student experiences. And so we share some common traits and common thinking. But often I'm presenting at a conference where I'm presenting to clients and architects and contractors and more diverse groups that have different opinions on things. And so just being aware of those differences is actually helpful in building your confidence. And would audience participation enrich the experience? So oftentimes we'll do more engagement, more work at tables or roundtable discussions and reporting back or using Menti. There are lots of ways that you can add dimension to a presentation and your audience comes away thinking, that was super cool. I learned a lot and it was a lot of fun to engage. My voice mattered because I was asked during the presentation. Speaking of which, any questions? Nothing yet? Okay, great. And then self-care. It's day of, you wake up and it's Wednesday and your session's at 9 a.m. and now you're getting the jitters again. The most important thing you should have done was go to bed early. Don't go to all the evening stuff and have too many drinks. You need good rest and you need to be, focused in the morning or in the afternoon, whatever it is. Don't drink too much coffee or whatever else, because you can actually make things worse. Whether you have a really strong exercise routine or not, doing some stretches, doing something simple in the morning to just prepare yourself. Drink lots of water. In fact, I made sure I got a glass of water for this because I'll start talking and soon I want to take a drink. And then you might laugh, but breathe. Breathing's important. If you find yourself talking and talking and talking and talking and soon you're out of breath, it just doesn't help the overall experience. It doesn't help your health. All right, so the pro tips. So why do I call these pro tips? It's kind of like, if you know what your message is and sound passionate, enthusiastic, you will connect with your audience. They will be engaged. If you understand the material, if you were the co-author of the project or the process at your university and you've learned about the good and the bad, you are an expert in that content, and that's going to help you deliver a compelling presentation. Oftentimes people forget this is more of a newspaper or a journalistic message, but don't bury the lead. What's your headline? Your key overriding message should be out in front. This is important, blank, and then deliver that, as opposed to creating an abstract title and then 20 minutes into the presentation, you get to your big point. Some folks will not even hear it because it will just be lost in all of the detail. Consider your audience. One thing I like to think about is use plain language. We are all experts. We all have a vernacular or a language within our expertise, whether it's architecture or engineering or philosophy, but using simple language will help connect with the audience, because if I start throwing out architectural terms, you don't even know what they are. Now you're lost trying to figure out what juxtaposition or anthropomorphic or whatever the heck is we talk about, the fancy words. They don't really help a presentation. And then, have water. And so with that, I want to take a couple of seconds and keep hydrated. So helpful hints to practice for a presentation. So I've kind of grouped these into some visual impacts and vocal impacts. And I'm standing up actually because it might help me demonstrate or model some behaviors. In the past, I've been in a sitting position and that's just a little harder. So I'm actually kind of happy that I'm up and I'm moving around. So eye contact is very important. Hard to do in a virtual setting because who am I looking at? I don't know. I might be looking at myself at this moment. But when you're in a physical space, an in-person presentation, eye contact's super important. It conveys that credibility, sincerity, and keeps you in touch with the audience. So you can also stare. Don't stare at the audience or at one person. That can make that individual pretty uncomfortable. So the 4-second rule, I could rest my eyes on one individual and kind of end a point and then move on to the rest of the room. Varying your eye contact is important. And if you're really having a hard time with eye contact, it's a real issue, it's totally fine. You can pick points in the room and just vary your gaze to the different points while you're talking, because you're mimicking making eye contact, but you're also not stuck in a static position. So just know that if eye contact's really a struggle, there's ways for you to still be compelling, and just by using spaces, points in the room. So body language is very important in terms of a visual impact. There's a thing called a power stance, which you can't really see. I don't even want to get up on a chair because then I could, I don't know, break my ankle. But both feet firmly planted in a very, stand up straight. Mom and dad are telling you to stand up straight. So do that in the audience. That's going to help with confidence. It's going to help with your diaphragm and actually making sure that you're loud enough. Sometimes you're in a sitting position, but don't sit and slouch. Sit forward, sit upright, be attentive. I move around a lot, but one thing I guess I can, but if you're talking and you're doing this, it's almost like you got a baby in your hand and you're like, that's not moving. That's showing a nervous tick in a way. So swaying's not good, but feeling like you can move around the space and point to the slide and maybe even change sides. These are all, and the camera hopefully will follow you. These are all great ways to feel comfortable, but also demonstrate confidence in that space. A comfortable posture is important, but not a slouchy one. So like yesterday, I was presenting up at the drive-in conference, and I caught myself doing something that I talk about in a second or two. And then I realized I had a credenza, so I kind of leaned against the credenza. It's kind of professorial. I was leaning, but I wasn't unattentively leaning, like I'm uninterested. So like, vary your posture. Just don't slouch. Don't make it seem like this is the most painful thing you're going through. And you're going to do fine. Stay in charge of your hands. um, it's good to use your hands. I was joking with Megan, if you're of Italian descent, you're already fine because you're using your hands. Sorry, I don't mean to pick on Italians, but they talk with their hands, and it's very animating and very enjoyable. But if you're standing really stiff and you're not making a lot of movements, it can be the opposite effect of being impersonal. So you see me again here using gestures. I'm not doing it too fast. But it's helpful because it can emphasize a point. So physical emotion. Here again, back with the expansive gestures with moderate speed, things like this. If you're pointing to a slide, don't point, but gesture towards it in a nice way. Smile, facial expressions, make funny faces if it's required. If you've got a slide that's trying to articulate confusion, look confused. It was really a confusing time. Animation, I think I'm demonstrating that, be excited about being there and show that. And maybe if you're not, even try and emulate being excited, because that's going to help, again, the overall audience experience. Simulation can be effective. So example might be charades. If you want to explain that you were climbing a tree or bowling, go ahead and act it out a little bit. It's kind of fun. It moves you around. And then getting back to the emotion, I think I demonstrated that laughter, tears, if you're telling a really important story that was very impactful, lowering your voice, slowing down, it just adds to the drama of the experience, and you will captivate those audiences, even if it's something that's a little bit painful to retell. If it's important and you feel courageous enough to share it, then do it, because it's just going to add dimension to the experience. This would be hard to explain, but standing too close to your audience will make everyone uncomfortable. So if you're in a typical, seminar space and there's a front row of folks and you're standing 2 foot away, that's weird. I mean, you would feel weird, but like, just know there are appropriate distances. There are cultural and gender differences in terms of space. So it's best to not be too far away to avoid any of it, but just, that's varying your space will actually support having the right combination of spatial relationship. I'm kind of standing straight at you, which maybe is just fine, but when I'm in physical space presenting, I do like to create a bit of an angle towards the audience and myself, because very often I'm gesturing to a graphic or something on the slide, and I want to be able to not do it where I'm, it looks weird. Here, if you look back there, or worse, I'm doing this and I'm not even looking at you guys. So having a little bit of an angle is a useful spatial tool. So time management, practice before you give your presentation to know if you've got a time issue. Here I sit at 22 minutes and I know we have about 50, so I feel pretty good. I know where I'm at in my slide deck, so I'm not going to pick up the pace. It's actually never really good to just try and finish, because then you're rushing everything. So time management actually before you present is important. Projecting your voice, I don't have a problem with that, but a lot of people are soft-spoken. And if there's weird acoustics in the room, or there's an air handling unit that's blowing heat or cooling, you may need to have a microphone. You may need to project more. And it's okay to ask, can everyone hear? Because sometimes if you're in the back of the room, you don't want to interrupt and say, I can't hear a damn thing. So ask. And if someone can't hear you, then it's your job to address it. And if there's no microphone, you may need to just talk louder. Varying the rate of your speech is also useful. So if you're up at a high speed, high register, and you're moving really fast through your stuff, that gets really hard to follow. And there could be moments where that's important, but there's also could be moments where you can slow down and talk about this. No, let me explain what you're looking at. You're looking at X, Y, and Z. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that it just creates more interest, verbal interest. And then, like I just said, don't speak too fast. There are some people that just, they got too much to say and they really want to say it and it's just not good. So tone, inflection, and silence. Moderate the tone, as I mentioned, as it suits the contents. There could be a moment that you really want to draw people in and you want to slow down and lower your voice, but not too low so the person in the back can't hear. Pausing is important. Placing emphasis, it places emphasis on what the next thing is that you're going to say. The end of a sentence, making sure your voice it drops a little. So some folks get into the habit of kind of finishing their sentences like this, and every time they end their sentence, it's like going up, and it doesn't really generate a lot of confidence because it sounds like you're questioning everything you say. So if you're in that habit, you're going to want to really focus on that. It's not a bad thing. It just sounds like you're asking questions or you aren't confident. Silence, again, if you have put these 2 points together, silence is important. It's powerful, actually. You can stop at the end of a thought and then move on to the next thought. Or if you lose your train of thought, which does happen, even for me, don't start talking more and trying to hope it shows up in your head. Just stop and think about what was the next point and then continue. And this is NWACUHO is a lovely crowd. There are peers. They're all supportive. You can trip physically or trip. Everyone's going to give you grace, but it's not about counting on the audience to give you grace. It's about practicing and being really compelling. So tone, inflection, and silence. So again, eye contact. Audience is going to be interested if you see them. Wow, I've just been recognized by the speaker. He looked at me again. Don't stare, because then it'll be like, now it's weird. The fig leaf thing is really hard to get out of, and I did it yesterday. So I can't describe it, but it's essentially taking your 2 hands and placing them over your whatever you want to call this area. It's neutral. So a power stance, feel good about putting your hands at your side, put one in your pocket, adjust your balance, maybe use that lectern, walk around, avoid the kind of like you're in church. Physical, be physical, be physically engaging and present. Try and feel like you're on stage a little bit. You're not going to get run off Broadway because you're not on Broadway. I like to get into the room very early. There's certainly the tech side of it, which you want your tech set up. In fact, Megan and I were goofing around with which screen was showing what for about 15 minutes before you all showed up because we wanted to make sure that things were right. But sometimes you want to rearrange the furniture. Maybe because you're doing something special where people are going to get up or you're moving around or you want to put them in groups. So getting there early and creating the environment you want is important. Don't talk too fast. Consider pace and volume, tone, inflection. Silence can be very powerful. If you land a really kind of a powerful thought, let the room be quiet for a few seconds and then move on. All right, things to avoid. How are we doing? 27 minutes. We're almost at 28 minutes. We're still doing well. I dare say I'm moving too fast. Any questions? Anybody have anything they want to ask? Okay. Helpful hits to avoid. Kind ofs, sort ofs, and likes. We'll get to all these in a minute. And I just did it. Look at that. Is natural. Is sometimes a typical placeholder. But when you lean on it constantly, so I'll try this. So I wanted to talk about avoiding these kind of words because they can be distracting. Or when it's kind of like this or sort of like that. I mean, it's just not professional. And one of the best ways to really practice this is to film yourself. If you're going to practice your presentation, maybe you can hit uh, record on your laptop and then listen to yourself. You would be surprised at how many times you lean on kind of or ums or sort of. And like I said, eliminating them permanently is not the answer, but not leaning on it like a crutch, which all too many of us do. It could convey a lack of confidence when you're not sure. I'm your architect, and I'm gonna design you like a really great, like sort of a really great building. I don't think you want to hire me. I think you want me to say, I am going to design you one of the most culturally responsive, dynamic, engaging student facilities, and here's how I'm going to do it. That's more interesting to, okay, Kurt, tell me more, versus check, please. Too much of that you'll lose the audience. Sometimes that's all I can hear, and I can't even hear the content, and it's because I just start hearing kind of and ums, and that's all I can do. So anyway, it's about being professional, about being prepared. It's about being compelling. This is tough for all of us as professionals too. Jargon, acronyms, initialisms. We all have a language in our own professional careers, but when we say SD or AHJ, which means authorities having jurisdiction, you run the risk of losing your audience. And I'm sure you don't really even all know what authorities having jurisdiction means. It's the permit people at the city. So that's simple language versus using an acronym. So be wary of that in your presentation, because sometimes you fall into the jargon when you're telling a story. So, and it's okay to say, when we were doing SD, and by the way, SD means schematic design, which is the early phase of a design, we did this. It's okay to correct yourself mid-flight. Just recognize that not everyone understands the jargon of our professional lives. If you just throw out a lot of jargons and acronyms, that audience might start Googling, what does SD mean? You might lose them because they're trying to figure out what you said, or what's an AHJ, what's an authority, what's a jurisdiction, anyway. Audience might miss your main points, and you're going to alienate folks. So beware of jargon. Don't read your notes. If I was sitting here, standing directly at the camera too close, and I was reading this presentation, and I turned the page to talk about not reading your notes, it's just not engaging, and it's not a good habit to get into. Now, having notes is okay. Small index cards that maybe have your big point on there, and you have them on your, it's nice to actually hold something sometimes. And if it says, the main point, and then you look at it and you switch it and then you start talking, totally fine. It's just when you get into a reading, it's a real crutch. Now, when you're doing virtual presentations, that habit can be even more enticing because you can't see if I've got my notes right next to the camera. But if I start reading the notes, you will see that I'm not making eye contact with you, and that there's a written language and a spoken language, and oftentimes they're not the same. And you can start to pick out when somebody is reading sentences, well-composed sentences. So just be wary of that. But again, note cards, fantastic. If you need them, if it's important, use them. Don't stare at the screen. Okay, that was me earlier. If I'm staring up at my screen and I'm talking about this beautiful plan that I created for you, next slide, and then I'm talking about the rendering, I haven't spent any time looking at my audience right there. You're looking at my back. That's not very engaging. And that's a real difficult habit to fall into if you haven't practiced. If you don't know what's on the slide and you have to look at it and go, what was I going to say to this again? That's a sign that maybe more practice is required. The audience is here. The slides are a tool for them, not for you. Swaying, I talked about that. can signal that you don't like, you're uncomfortable. So no swing, no swing. Yeah, the ums, the kind of like, just pause. It's back to that silence again, but maybe not for dramatic effect. It's just, I'm gonna pause instead of saying sort of. Talked about jargon. I think I've beat all these to pretty well. Referring to notes actually could show that you're really prepared. You were so prepared, you wanted to get everything perfect and you brought notes, and that's very sweet and not like cute. It's like this person prepared. I appreciate that. All right. I'm almost done at 34 minutes. I think by adding a section on, virtual meetings, that might add another 5 minutes and, really get me in the right spot. So I would offer that presenting is a little bit of theater, and not to say that it should just be about the theatrics, but think of it that way a little bit, because sitting and listening to someone standing and talking for 50 minutes is a lot to ask. And if that person isn't captivating you with funny anecdotes, jokes, interactive, whatever, I don't know if I want to go to that session. I might sneak out midway through because I got a phone call. So just think about it being a little bit of theater. Maybe you're not a drama geek, but just consider, I'm going to do something a little bit different, get out of my comfort zone just a little bit. Everyone has got a fantastic personality. There's not one person I've met at NWACUHO that isn't fun and engaging and interesting. But bring yourself to the presentation. It's okay that, like maybe Kurt Haapala is known for talking a lot, and I'll make fun of myself. I do. I talk a lot. Somebody, hit the hook and pull me off stage. But if you're laughing and smiling because I'm kind of poking at myself, and others in the room that know me might do the same, I've just added a little bit of theater to the presentation. I do like getting laughs just because it's, this business is hard enough. Let's have a little bit of fun. I think the personal insights are really, really special, really, really important. When you share a story about engaging with faculty or with a student or with a parent, and it led to something good or something really unfortunate, those stories are super interesting. It'll make the points you're making even more dynamic. And then if you do it all right, they're going to want to go to the next session that Megan Lockwood or Sophia Hutchinson's going to present, or Nathan, or Aaron Elliott. I've got some friends from Walsh Construction here, I see, who I've presented with in the past. So I don't know what they think of all this, but that's it. There are some resources here which I can make available. There are lots of resources out there, articles, go to YouTube and talk about giving great presentations. I mean, it's endless, but they all kind of have a message that's important, and it'll center around being prepared, being confident, some of these little tips and tricks. And it's all for the sake of getting that great story and that great content out there into the audience, and then benefiting from their questions, benefiting from their presentations that they're doing next that you're going to be in the audience listening to. So it's a lot of, I enjoy it. So, okay, we are at 36 minutes, almost 37. I've got plenty of time for questions. So I'll stop, have a drink of water, and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to either just unmute yourself and ask, or you can raise your virtual hand if that's more your speed, or you can put them in the chat and we will ask them aloud for you. Amber.
Oh, hey, Kurt, we just met yesterday.
Hey, Amber.
I was wondering, do you see how we react on Zoom with our clapping or cry faces or hearts? Or does that distract you? Or
That's actually a good question. So for today, if there was anything going on, I didn't see it, and it's really probably because of
you didn't react.
Yeah, well, but I had the tech setup is set up in a way that it's also really hard as a presenter to keep track of chats and stuff happening.
For sure.
I'm actually sort of happy everyone mostly had their screens off, because if I saw you, I might pay more attention to you and, oh, I'm saying something, I do know of some folks in my office that they have even called themselves like self-proclaimed squirrels. If somebody raises their hand, they're done. They're already off to the hand and answering the question. when they maybe should have stayed focused on their content. So I think it depends on the individual. Me personally, if you'd have hit your screen and hit a hand, Megan or I would have been like, yes, Amber, hey, good to see you. Because we did just meet yesterday. And what you got for me? So anyway.
No, you just when you said you liked people laugh at you to, so they can tell you that you were engaged. I did the laughing
Oh,
emoji.
okay.
There's
But it didn't
definitely,
work.
Well, and for
Megan
what
saw it.
it's
I
worth,
saw Megan laugh at it, so that was
right.
good.
Well, for what it's worth, yesterday I watched you in tours and everything be very engaged, and you were very animated, and you brought joy to my face, even though you weren't presenting, but it was clear that you were enjoying the day. You were engaging,
Yes, I
with talking to
was.
people. So
I was.
you're a natural.
Thanks, Kurt.
that was a great question, Amber. Yeah, Kurt, there was a lot of clapping and thumbs up and all kinds of stuff going on, but
Good.
sorry you only saw my face. Other questions or comments?
Oh, there's got to be. You guys you're thinking about a conference abstract, aren't you, for NWACUHO? Let's problem solve in the room.
I don't have that type of question, but can I ask a question anyway?
Sure.
My question is more around like what tips you have for answering hard questions that people might ask you during a presentation or after a presentation, whether it's, you know, knowing when not to go into too much detail or how to say, I don't know.
Well, we can problem solve that because there's probably two or three options, right? So if it's and the definition of a hard question, who knows what that looks like, but if it's well, first and foremost, I would somehow receive the question. I would say, "Ooh, that is a hard one," or "That's a really insightful question," and I would allow myself some theater to like. I would do things like this. I'd be like, I'm not sure I've ever been asked that. I need some time to think about that, right? So I'm buying myself time. I might even take a moment and think, and sometimes someone else might jump in and talk to the question in the audience, and that's all good. I still need to think about it. I still have a responsibility to address the question. So it could be like I thought of something that might be close to the answer, so I'm going to share it, and then I would share it. That's option A. So in all of these options, there's the ooh, wow, amazing. You're amazing for asking the hard questions. And then you receive it, and I give an answer. And I don't care if the answer is an A answer or an F answer. I answered it. The other one might be this honest and authentic, I've been stumped. I don't have an answer to your question, Megan. But I tell you what I am going to do. Let's connect after the presentation. I want your information. I think I could do a little bit of research and get you the answer. Or maybe there's someone at my office that can, it's making me think of this. So let's connect after. So I don't answer your question, but I give you an opportunity for us to connect. And I still have this obligation after the conference and I've flown home. I better follow up with Megan because she might be like a week later. God, Kurt never even responded to my question. That isn't cool. And then the third might just be this, I got nothing. And we're out of time. Thanks, folks. You'd be great. I mean, not dodging the question, but at some point, if it's this impossible question, and I don't think there's ever some impossible question that I have to do some soul searching and talk to my therapist about, but it might just be, you know what, that is a great question. I really don't have a crystal ball on that answer. I wish I had a solid answer, but I don't. So A, B, or C. Um, those often happen in interviews when we're interviewing for work. There are hard questions in those situations. But in a presentation, I think there's a lot of grace in the room. We're all at conferences. We're listening to content. Your goal maybe isn't to stump the presenter. But hard questions are great because it often could lead to a different conversation and, join people in the audience that maybe weren't connected. So did I answer your question? So that's the last thing, is following up, like being really, did I answer your question? And then often, Megan, you'll be like, yeah, that was a pretty good answer. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thank you, Kurt. Other question?
Come on. I don't bite. I'm not in person. I can't bite anyway.
No, you can just put them in the
Who
chat.
here- Well, okay, let me ask some questions. Who here is considering writing a proposal for Northwest NWACUHO? That is a bad question. That's a hard question because that means you have to. All right, Amber, she's got a thumbs up. Nathan, very good. Peyton, excellent. So, no need to share. But I am a resource. I think my email is somewhere. Is it in the next slide? No, that was my end. My key overriding message is the stage of is yours. You saw it in the beginning, my first slide, and then at the end, kind of landing with that. Nathan, is this a question? Certainly would love to respond. Or is your hand still up?
That is, I typed my question in the chat.
Okay. Well, where is I don't have my
Oh,
email, but
Nathan did type a question. I see.
okay.
Sorry, I missed it. Said, what advice do you have for recovering from a stumble in your groove?
Like, well, so there's two. There's the stumble in the moment and you have to somehow recover. And then there might be a stumble and you're like days later, God, I just screwed that up. I don't know which one you're talking about, but let's talk about the first one. A stumble. I own it. Again, got a lot of grace in the audience and you're not being graded. This isn't a job interview. So, and even if it is a job interview, owning a stumble shows authenticity. It shows humility. So if you really, and a stumble might be you're talking about something and you're moving forward with your presentation, but you missed like a key piece of information 4 slides back. I don't know if that's a good example of a stumble, but it's really okay to stop yourself and go like, wait a minute, I want to go back. I want to go back to this slide right here because I really felt like I didn't deliver the point I wanted to. Like, I just feel like owning it and being completely authentic is just shows your human side, shows that you can actually adjust on the fly, which might be an interesting trait in a job interview. In fact, here's a story for you. Mahlum Architects, and I was on this interview team for a project, and it was, I think it was in person. I think it was all kinds of tech issues. Like literally 20 minutes of our allotted time was messing around with the tech, and it wasn't caused by us. It was like a power outage or something. And we just started to do our thing, and we won the project. And one of the feedback was we got to watch you problem solve with something that kind of wasn't even fair, but it showed us a lot about your team. So with that story in mind, when you stumble, owning it and recovering, even if it's you're thinking out loud, let's see, I really did want to talk. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this thing over here, and then do it. I think it's perfectly good. I would, if I was in the audience, I'd be smiling, be like, I like that. They nailed it. They brought it back. They got back on track and they kept going. So I hope that was a good answer, a little long-winded, but so Jeremy Rear, I know that name.
Hey, Kurt. Yeah, one of the other things to consider if you do stumble is you could lean on your co-presenters too. If they're familiar with what your content is, they can say, "Oh, Kurt, you were going to talk," or if you stumble and you kind of look to them, they can say, "Oh, Kurt, you were going to talk to us about what your final thoughts were," and then you can say, "Oh yeah, thank you for bring that to the forefront," and then you can continue. That's one way to recover from that if they're familiar with what your content is.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. That is coming from interview prep training that we received. And so that was good because you're very often presenting with someone else. You're not always alone on a stage, but that other person who might get you back on track should not take the content, because that shows that you're undermining the person that stumbled. But great point, Jeremy. I'm glad you brought that up. So I counted 3 hands, I think, Megan, and for submissions, so that's good for the program committee.
We'll be watching. Just
Anything else at all?
anything else? We have a couple minutes left.
Architectural questions. You got plumbing issues, something going wrong in the res hall? I don't know if I can help, but. Ah, Amber, I do see I see it now.
Well, then we can start to wrap up. I don't want to step on anyone's last minute questions. But thank you so much, Kurt, for being here and for always being willing to do a webinar for us. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. We know a lot of people were unable to attend today, and that you may want to go back and watch this. So we will have it up on our YouTube channel soon. Again, I hope this has inspired some people to submit a proposal. They are due on November 16th. So I'm going to put the website in the chat. You can find more information about submitting a proposal at northwestcuho.org/annual conference. Look forward to seeing those submissions. But lastly, thank you again, Kurt, so much. Thank you, everyone. And we hope to see you all again soon.
Have a great rest of the week, everyone.